Hello, everyone. This is Eric Diaz and CIS 103. Thank you for joining this week. I'm really happy to have the beginning of the sports season and really excited to have Kaci Demarest from the Arizona Coyotes to join us today. So we're going to be talking about sports marketing in particular. Obviously, it's not a sports class, but I really am interested. I'm a pretty big sports fan, so it's always fun for me to learn more about the insides of sports and like how it all works, especially on the marketing side and the social media side. So it was really good opportunity to have Kaci here because it actually does a lot of the day-to-day production. And so Kaci, thank you so much for being part of today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Sure. So let me just give a little bit more introduction about Kaci. So Kaci is a social media producer for the Arizona Coyotes, which is an NHL hockey team here in the Valley. Her role focuses on producing short form video content for social media channels, specifically TikTok, and collaborating on day-to-day social media content. Kaci received a Bachelor of Arts degree in sports journalism with a minor in women and gender studies from Arizona State and graduated magna cum laude. During her time at ASU, she had the chance to cover major events in the Valley, like spring training, Final Four, and the Super Bowl, amongst others. Additionally, she serves as an adjunct professor teaching a beginner multimedia sports journalism class at her alma mater, ASU. So, Kaci, thanks again for being part of it. Like I said, you have a very fun, exciting job. Tell us more about it. Like what is it that you actually do for the Arizona Coyotes?
Yeah, so my official title is social media producer. And like you said, I focus on creating a lot of short form video content. But when it comes to social media, that's not the only thing that I do. We have a team of two other people that I work with, and collaboratively, we manage and run the day to day of all of our social media channels. So that's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok. And always keeping an eye out for new platforms that we can be on, and just managing the day to day community management. Obviously, we're coming into the start of our season here, so that's really where we're shifting our focus towards. It was also super exciting for us. We just rebranded last week, bringing back the Kachina logo full time, one of the most iconic logos in sports. And we brought back the white Kachina jersey, so that was kind of a bulk of what we were doing behind the scenes all summer. So it's really exciting to see that out there now, and our fans are really excited for it. Our players are actually wearing them tomorrow night on the road at Anaheim. And then we're bringing them home for our first home opener as well. We're going to wear the whites at home for the first time since the early 2000s, which will be super exciting. So yeah, we handle all of that. I do a lot of our, like I said, day-to-day social media, but then I also handle a lot of our paid media as well. So like running Facebook ads, and that kind of thing. I like to kind of think of myself as a Swiss Army knife on the social team, just because I can do everything. I can create the copy, I can create the videos, create the memes, create those kind of like one-off social posts, that capture social right in the moment.
That's great. So how did you get into that role? How did you get started with Coyotes?
Yeah, so a little bit of background about me. Like you said, I graduated from ASU in 2018 with my bachelor's in sports journalism. I'm also wrapping up my master's in digital audience strategy right now. I have one more class to go, so I'm very excited about that. But my path to get into sports, when it comes to sports, like no one has the same path. Like everybody has a different path to getting into sports. And I really loved mine. My first job coming out of school, I was the digital content manager for the Arizona Hotshots in the Alliance of American Football League.
Right.
Very short lived. It was a very short lived first job. And when that folded, I was looking around for ways to kind of keep my foot in the door for sports. I ended up becoming a part time web editor for Arizona Sports and KTR News. That fall, I ended up getting the social media internship here at the Arizona Coyotes. And unfortunately, with COVID, they cut the internships. But then when they did return to play for the 2020 bubble, I came back on as a contractor. I did contract work for them until I came on full time in January. So I've been full time with the team since January, and I love every minute of it.
That's great. And Casey, I thought it'd be really helpful and great for the class to kind of maybe see some examples of what it is, some of the content you're creating. So I want to see if maybe if you could share some of that, and I can allow you to share your screen for that.
Yeah, if you give me sharing capabilities, I have a couple of like tweet examples pulled up. I have our a couple of our tweets, our Instagram feed, and then I have our TikToks as well. I can pull up one or two of those. So okay, cool. I see. Share screen. Perfect. Can you guys see my screen? Okay.
Perfect.
Awesome. So this is basically our Twitter account here. This first video we have it pinned at the top of our profile because it's the most important piece of content on our page right now. This was our Kachina drop video. So this was a really exciting piece of content that we have. This is something that our production team put together.
Cool.
So the purpose of that video is essentially to relaunch our brand. We had kind of hinted that we were going back to the Kachina since this summer. The last couple of seasons, we'd worn the black Kachinas at home. We wore them full time at home last season outside of the reverse retros. And at the draft, we officially switched back to the Kachina logo, but on like our social platforms and digital platforms, we hadn't made that switch yet. So when we made that switch, diehard hockey fans kind of knew if we were using the Kachina logo in the draft, it must mean we're going back to it full time. And there were little hints along the way, like that. Our center ice logo, when we revealed it a couple of weeks before, has the Kachina at center ice, and that's usually relates to your primary logo as well. So the purpose of this is we played it up with the copy to pair with the video. People in our mentions since July and even before then, they were tweeting at us saying like, bring back the white Kachina. We want the white Kachina. Show us the white Kachina jersey. Like it was the big iconic thing. We hadn't seen it since 2003. So we kind of played it up with the copy. You asked, we answered, they're back. And then we ended up following up that content throughout the day with branded photography shoots, pre-order links, and just really trying to capitalize and drive on all the excitement that came out of that. So that's like a big project that I've worked on in the last week. My day-to-day, I do all of our TikTok content. So this is our page right here. This is super exciting. This TikTok was a project that I started as an intern. So the platform is really my baby. I crafted everything. I do all the content for it. I'm knee deep in the platform at all times during the day. My coworkers kind of make fun of me because I'm just like making TikTok references all the time. And my boss says like, Kaci thinks in TikToks and it's a blessing and a curse. So I'll show one of my favorite ones that we did from the last week. We had some cool like branded ones that we did for the white Kachina drop. This was kind of a funny one that I played off of with a sound. It's basically pulling a bunch of tweets of people tweeting at us saying like, bring back the white Kachina, you won't. And then it kind of like drops to it. So.
Oh, Kaci, one thing, I don't know that if we're getting the audio on it, but we can try it again. We may not get the audio, but it's okay.
Oh, okay.
We can try that. Yeah, give it a whirl, see if it does it. It might have been something I needed to set up earlier. So
it might be because I have headphones in as well. So that might be why. But
this
one basically just used a line out of one of the Adam Sandler movies where I think it's Big Daddy, where the kid's like, kangaroo song. And he's like, all right, already. So we kind of like dropped that. This is a short one. It doesn't really need the audio for it. We had our players at Media Day try to attempt to draw our logo. It's a really cool logo, but it's also really hard to draw. So a couple of our players are really good sports about it. And we were able to kind of mash it up into like watching them try to draw it. Nick Schmaltz here is one of our fan favorites. So he was a good sport about it. And then we got a lot of the like younger players to do it as well. So there they are revealing their attempts at the Kachina. Ivan Prosbitov actually did really well.
Really?
Jacob Chikrin.
Oh, that's
great. So the purpose of like our TikTok account is really to kind of show those like behind the scenes portions that fans really can't get anywhere else. And that's kind of the point of our whole platform strategy here, is to give fans the access that money really can't buy. Like on a home game, you know, standing outside the locker room, getting the guys like hyped up, ready to go, coming out of the tunnel, like unless you're like super connected, like you're probably not getting that experience. So the whole point of us on social is like giving them that that behind the scenes look that they just can't get anywhere else.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. So a follow-up question to that. So I know you manage the TikTok. Is there somebody else on your team that runs some of the other channels, or I mean, I know there's a lot of marketing that goes into it. So it's probably, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so all summer long, it's actually just been my boss and myself. Marissa Mass is the VP of Social and Brand Strategy. And her and I have been handling all the platforms all summer. Running social for a sports team is definitely, you need multiple people behind the scenes, whether that's creating the content for it, whether it's strategizing what content goes where, because there's certain pieces of content that we have that don't necessarily go on every single platform. Like, for example, media availability, we generally only share that on Twitter because it's more news centric, and that's the audience that's really looking for that kind of post game sound from players. But when it comes to goals, those get shared across all platforms, like our three main platforms, I should say, like Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, because those are places that people are looking for that like diehard hockey content at the end of the day. So all summer long, it was just Marissa and myself. We just had a social specialist start this week, so I'm super excited to get her onboarded and get it going for the start of the season.
That's great. Okay, very good. So Hillary, I'm going to ask one or two more questions about sports, and then if you would just like ask you, since we're talking about sports and social media, ask the question in a minute about that you had about sports and social media. Kaci, question for you is, what have you learned from working with sports? So what satisfies your stakeholders the most? Who are your stakeholders too, in regards to content creation?
I think the biggest lesson I've learned in sports, I actually took it away from my first job when I was working for the Hot Shots. We had a slogan that our team had. We would just say, like, we are the AAF, we're adaptable, adjustable, and flexible. And that's something that I've really held close to me since starting out in sports. You can have a plan and you can have it all marked out of like what things are going to go where. But you have to be able to adapt and adjust and be flexible on the fly. I'll give you an example today. We had a press release that was supposed to go out at 11 o'clock. I was waiting forever on the creative. I ended up not getting the creative until an hour after the press release was supposed to go. I sent it for approval, and our PR team wanted to switch out one of the headshots. So then it was like flipping it back to get the headshot flipped out again. And then, by the time we got it up, this press release had been out there to the media for like an hour and a half. It wasn't a big press release by any means, but being adaptable and being able to adjust on the fly in those kind of situations. To answer the other part of your question, when it comes to like satisfying key stakeholders, I would say for us on the sports side, we actually have a lot of partnerships that we do to help drive a lot of revenue through social. So we have like one of our partners is Centrone. They're an energy drink company. So they actually have a lot of pieces of collateral that they work with us on, whether that's like a paid campaign or branded posts, or they do like a hype video every month. So for those kind of things, and it really depends on the partner, it just comes down to like communicating with them and making sure that the partner is on a piece of content that they're going to be really excited about. So for Centrone being on like a monthly hype video, that's something that they're excited about, and they generally reshare across their platforms as well. Some companies don't really care about social media, and that's okay. They just want their brand to be out there on social. So we work to make sure that they're on something that they really care about, or they're getting like the most like out of what they're spending with us.
Got it. Okay. Just question for you on the TikTok videos. Do you produce or do you film those, or are those done by somebody else? Or?
I would say 99% of the stuff that goes on the TikTok account. There's a few here and there where our videographer will shoot something and then I'll recut it for the platform itself. So for example, a couple weeks ago during our development camp scrimmage, one of our videographers grew up playing hockey, so he's really talented on skates. We actually got permission from like hockey ops to have him lace up the skates for warm-ups for the scrimmage, and he was able to take his camera out there and skate around with the players during warm-ups, and he shot this amazing behind the scenes video. So I worked with him to cut it for a TikTok version where no one's going to stick around to wait for a really long intro, and they're not really waiting around on that platform for a really long video. So it was cutting it to say like, we had cell phone video of him skating around out there, and I started it with like we put our videographer on skates for our scrimmage this week, and like, here's what he shot. And then it was like only 15 seconds of what he had done. Where
Hmm.
on the other platforms, they had seen it a couple days before, and it was like a minute long, fully like well produced video to kind of like recap it. So
Great. What besides you mentioned AAF, adaptable, adjustable, flexible, right? And
yes.
besides that, what other challenges do you have in managing social media for a major sports team?
I think it's just at the end of the day, like making sure that you're communicating with your team, whether that's like my immediate social team or other people that, you know, are feeding in content to us. So we work really closely with our public relations department and our production team as well, because they're the ones who are cutting those really high end videos. So just making sure that production or that communication lines are really open. And then again, it's just like adapting and being quick with hockey. Hockey moves so fast. You can have like, you know, no goal scored through the first two periods, and then you come out to start the third, and it's like back to back goals, and you've got to get them up on Twitter. You have to get them across platforms, and it takes time to go back and cut those highlights. So it's, you know, making sure that you're keeping your cool, not getting too frazzled, and really getting back into it, and just making sure that you're putting stuff out in a sense that makes sense for fans.
Very good. And Hillary, I wanted to give you a chance. I think you had a sports related question, if you would.
Yeah. So I was just wondering, what types of things do you do when you find it difficult to create continuous new content, you know, especially just like being constantly working specifically with like hockey or a specific sport, and you find yourself struggling to make new content or content that's going to be interesting or not constantly repeating the same stuff?
Definitely. So now that we're getting back into season, I'd say like the content gets a little bit easier because we're really telling the storyline of what's going on with the
Mhm.
team, what's happening, what happened last night, what's happening tomorrow night, you know, what they can expect on the ice tonight. We really try to make it where, you know, if it's a game day and you're following along on our social channels, even if you're not at the arena, you can tell pretty well like what's going on. So we have like a game day graphic, we'll have morning skate, we'll have, you know, the guys getting ready for warm-ups or coming out for warmups. We have lineups that come out, we have tune in, and then as the game's going on, making sure we're really telling that story of the game and highlighting certain things that we know are going to be standing out. And it's being aware of storylines, like, you know, Phil Kessel's, like last year, he had his 800th NHL game or his
Wow.
800th NHL point, being aware of those milestones that are coming up so we can appropriately highlight them on social. But as far as creating content that like stays fresh and keeps fans engaged, a lot of it comes from brainstorming with our like counterparts in other departments just to see if they have things that they're thinking about, if they've seen things on like social from other teams. Honestly, like my best ideas, or not my best ideas, but some of our best ideas come from like seeing what other teams are doing and saying like, oh, hey, like the Suns did this, like how could we adapt to do that on our channel? Or even seeing brands that did certain things. We did my boss saw something on Instagram where it was like screenshot to see like your like affirmation for the day or something like that. And I was like, oh, we could do that with the white Kachina
Oh
like
yeah.
photo shoot day
Yeah.
things. So it's like if you screenshot it, it's like which player are you kind of thing. So it's just following different accounts like on social to like keep getting ideas. And it's a lot of trial and error as well, because sometimes we'll have an idea and I'll be like, oh, this is great, this is going to do so well, and then it just like falls flat on its face. Or like, you know, maybe I spend 5 minutes whipping something up and it like takes off and I'm like, okay. So you never know.
Oh, very good. Kaci, I got some questions just about general social media. So if you could share with the class a little bit more about like the process, like how is content created, how is it approved, et cetera? How does that whole all work?
Yeah, so for us here, we actually have a content meeting every Monday where we meet with our social team, our PR team, production, our writers, and any other departments that may have something coming up. And we basically go through and we have a content calendar, which is basically just a Google Doc, and it's a running list of things that we know are coming that week. If it's a game day, what sponsored assets we know are supposed to go that day. If we have something slated in for that day, like if it's a feature we've been waiting on and we know like it's going to publish on Wednesday, it's like slated in for that day. So we get together at the start of the week, like first thing Monday morning, and we're like, here's what we have on our plates this week. What can we expect from you guys? So just keeping those lines of communication open and generally doing like a midweek check-in to say like, hey, are there any new press releases coming? What things do I need creative prepared for? and things like that.
That's great. Okay. Question that came in from one of the students in the class, and so she asked, she said, with all the negativity surrounding social media, such as addiction among youth and like tech misusage, I think she's talking about Cambridge Analytica, things like that. Do you believe that these issues will ultimately impact how social media marketers such as yourself use these platforms?
I don't know necessarily for social media marketers. It's definitely something that we're aware of. Obviously, there is a lot of negativity on social, and running a brand account, we see a lot of it as well. The first thing, like if let's say like the team loses, people are automatically going to take to social and they're like, oh, you guys are terrible tonight. And it's like they're tweeting at Arizona Coyotes. They think it's going to the player or the coach on the ice. It's coming to me. Like I'm reading through all those comments. And I have to remind myself, like, they're not attacking me. Like it's, directed elsewhere, but they're automatically going to come to the brand account. So for us, one of our philosophies that we have is to make social media fun again and to make it like a positive place. Like we're never going to like go and like put negativity out there. Like we're going to try to like spread like good and like goals and like show what we're doing in the community and like have fun. And like one of the things that we really like here is we're not like close, but like we're pretty friendly with like other teams that are on social. So last year when we were playing like different divisions for the COVID season, like we saw the St. Louis Blues 8 times, and for part of that, with the crazy schedule we had, we played them 7 games in a row. So we got to be like going back and forth with like Blues Twitter, and like at the very end, like right before we played our last of like the 7 games, like it was like a Monday night, we were like, hey Blues, like we know yesterday was Valentine's Day, and like it's not us, it's you. We think we should play other teams, and like just trying to, find cute moments like that to capitalize on. But as far as like the negativity, I mean, we see it with our players, not just on our team, but across the league as well, where people will like take to social and go after them. Like players will like get off social media because they see it as like a negative place. So something that we try to do is like show them like, hey, it's actually like a really positive place. And like, even if you just post like once a week, like you would really exponentially grow your following. It can open you up for like other opportunities, and you can be setting yourselves up for like once you hit up the skates one day, like trying to get them to see like the value in their personal social. Fans love hearing from the brand. They love even more hearing from their favorite players. So we really try to get them to post, which it's a struggle, but we're working on it.
Do some of them, just curious, but does the team post on their behalf for some people, or do they, and I've heard like a lot of platforms that like individual players can use to kind of manage their accounts. Does any of that go on with your players? Or?
We actually have a platform where we can send them pre-crafted tweets or Instagram posts as well with the image and the copy, and they have the ability, if they approve it, it automatically posts to their account for them. Or if they want, they can change the copy, or they can decline it, or they can just ignore it. So that's one way to do it. I personally like don't run any of the players' accounts. I make sure to provide them with photos after a win. So like last night, for example, I knew that Jan Yannick, one of our younger players, he had reached out to me over the weekend and he was like, hey, can I get some photos from camp? And I was like, yeah, I worked with our photographer. Here's a folder where you can download those folders. Also, like, I'll let you know Monday after the game when there's new photos in there as well. And I texted him last night and was like, hey, Jan, like just letting you know there's more photos in here. And he was like, oh, yes, awesome. And then he turned around, like posted today. So
that's good.
Like being able to provide them with that content makes them want to post more. We see it a lot with Jacob Chikrin here as well. We started providing him with like really strong photography, and he's really like taken to owning his social because he's realized the value that there is in it.
Got it. Very good. I don't see Hillary on, but she did send a couple questions that I wanted to ask, which, oh, there you are. Hillary, would you ask you had a couple other questions about like general social media, if you would.
Well, I think, in terms of, listening to you more and how things can change so quickly on the fly, especially with the sports team and, just trying to follow the weekly narrative of, what they do. So aside from things that pop up, how far in advance do you kind of plan content for the following weeks? I know you said you had a calendar, which was really good information, but so do you do it monthly and map out, generally what you want to see? And then how far in advance do you do that?
We really don't plan that far in advance just because things can change. There are things that we have like on our radar that are a couple months out, but it's like a branded month. Like if there's a presenting partner on like Hispanic Heritage Month is a really big thing with our organization. So like that's been on our calendar since July or like June or July this summer when we were looking ahead to the season and like looking even further ahead, like the holidays are kind of on our calendar, but it's more broad initiatives. It's not something super specific. I would say like the more specific things that are on our calendar are like players' birthdays, like Phil Kessel's birthday is on Saturday. So like I have it in my head to like I have a post that's coming. And then like even in the coming weeks, like I have a whole separate calendar from my work calendar that is just players' birthdays because there's been
Oh.
instances like in the past where we've just like missed a birthday and it's like the worst feeling in the world because you like want to make sure you're wishing all your players a happy birthday. So usually those are kind of the furthest we plan in advance. And then again, like some of our bigger initiatives like Hockey Fights Cancer Night or Military Appreciation Night, and they're more like until we get about a month out from them, they're more just like blips on our radar. And then the closer we get to that point, the more we'll start to be like, okay, we're gonna want to feature for Hockey Fights Cancer Night, and like here's the different kind of assets that we want going into this. So we've gotten a little bit better about planning further out, but usually we take it like a week at a time.
A week at a time. And just to piggyback off that, so do you find that it is beneficial for you to have reserve content? Do you guys overproduce and overshoot to have that backup to fill in gaps if maybe, you know, it's a slow week or there's just not a lot of like?
Yeah, so this summer was like I would say the summertime is more when we do that. Like I'll try to come up with more ideas and it's like we try to produce more evergreen content so it can really go whenever. Like that GIF idea I was talking about where you can like screenshot for like which player you are. Like we haven't shared that yet. We'll probably share it tomorrow with like the white Kachina or like at production day last week, we shot a lot with players that isn't necessarily getting shared like right this minute. Like we shot TikTok with players that'll get shared the week before opening night. Normally we're able to just like go down after practice and be like, hey, Clayton Keller, I need you for something. And like I can just grab them and like work with PR and get what I need to get. But for those kind of things where it's like an opening night initiative or a specific night, like we'll work ahead to make sure that we're like stocking those kind of content. But as far as evergreen with social, we really just kind of try to live in the moment with it and try to play off things that we have. Sometimes I'll, you know, keep the receipts like we did for that TikTok where it was, you know, throwing out tweets of people who are you know, adding us and saying like, bring back the white Kachina, you won't. And we actually ended up taking one of those tweets. The guy was like, bring back the white Kachina, you cowards. And we quote tweeted him the morning we brought the white Kachina back. And his tweet was from like March. So we like found the oldest tweet possible. And we were like, we hope you're happy, James. And it actually got more likes than the jersey release video on Twitter. So it's all about kind of capitalizing on those things and like, you know, kind of having fun with fans. And it honestly comes down to knowing your brand voice as well. We're like a hockey team in the desert. Like we're not like hard hockey news by any means. We're more of like like we get a little sassy and like we toe the line a little bit and, you know, we try to have fun and like, we just try to be like another, like one of your friends that you're like watching the game with at the end of the day. Like, so.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
You had another question about software. Did you want to ask, Kaci?
Oh yeah, I was just I was just interested in especially because of just like with the TikTok and you know that's all really kind of foreign to me. Don't get me wrong, I love watching them.
Sure.
But I've never filmed content for them and I'm you know but so with that do you find yourself using the app itself more and its software for editing or do you have like an outside like software for editing even like I mean videos I guess for all of your socials?
Yeah, I actually hate editing TikToks in the app and same with Instagram Reels. You can do it. It's just really clunky and I don't have the patience for it. So a lot of times I'll like shoot the clips organically and then I'll drop them. I use Adobe Premiere Pro, but you can also use like iMovie or Final Cut Pro, just like slice it together. So I'll like download the sound from the app. I'll drop that in and I'll you know, it's a lot easier just kind of like line up those like little specific things and it lets me see it better rather than like jumping back and forth and trying to line things up correctly because I just don't have the patience for it. But as far as like editing other content, the Adobe suite is usually what we use. Like if I'm trying to, you know, rattle off a meme real quick, I'm pulling it into Photoshop and, you know, with my very base skills, you know, rigging something up. Or like with Premiere Pro, like if I'm, you know, trying to make like I know like ASU football used to do it a lot. I haven't really seen them do it this season. They would take like old SpongeBob clips and like photo or like put their like opponent's logo and like their logo on it. And it's a lot of like keyframe action to like get it to like follow like SpongeBob walking around or whatever. So I'll use Premiere Pro for that as well. Sometimes it's like second period and we're like joking around and I'm like, oh, that would be funny if we like win. Like there were a couple like that last season where there's like an old SpongeBob clip where Patrick's like trying to get Squidward to grasp a jellyfishing net. And he's like, firmly grasp it in your hand. And he's like trying to get him to hold it. And I ended up keyframing it so it looked like we were trying to get the LA Kings to hold their L, like because they lost the game. So we like, yeah, it was that one was funny. And then when we got done playing the Blues, we pulled the clip from Princess Diaries where it was like, Your Majesty, Pablo's worked tirelessly to bring you like take this and this and we give you a princess, and like the mirrors pull aside and it's like the King's logo because it's like we finally have a new opponent to play. So it's just like finding those pop culture moments that you can really like capitalize on, but again it also like just really works for the brand. Like in sports, capitalizing off pop culture like really works for us. So yeah, sorry, I hope that answered your question.
No, that was actually really helpful because I have like an Adobe Cloud and I've been really trying to learn a lot of the different, elements like, and I'm going to start messing with Premiere just because, it's hard to understand like what the best software is to use to cut these videos to, the transitions and all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's very daunting.
My recommendation for that is actually Adobe has a lot of really good tutorial videos on their YouTube account. I actually direct my students to some of them sometimes as well. Like if they need a little extra help with like keyframing or like sequencing or something like that, they have a lot of really good playlists on there for all their apps that they use. So I would definitely recommend checking that out.
I will. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
Kaci, I want to transition into some questions about career strategy, talking a little bit about your career, and then we'll wrap up by going to any final advice for the students. So yeah, so obviously you're with the Coyotes, been with them a little while. What's next for you? Where do you want to go in your communications career?
I'm honestly, not sure. When I graduated 3 years ago, the position that I have now really didn't even exist. So I don't even know like 5-10 years down the line what's even really going to be around. I just know like I want to keep growing the skill set that I have, and I really try to do that every day when it comes to like digital marketing and like digital strategy, and just figuring out like what's new and what's upcoming and like constantly learning. I think like next in my career, I would like to stay in sports for like a little bit longer, maybe like the next 5 to 10 years or so. But I eventually see myself probably transitioning to either teaching full time or doing like the agency side of things. I think there's a real opportunity like on the agency side to really help sports, and not only help sports teams, but to help athletes as well. Like when it comes to managing their own like personal brand and personal media. I know their agents do a lot of that for them. But social media is such a big growing part of that brand. It helps to have people who are like really specialized in like creating content for them. Like with the Cardinals, like a JJ Watt, like he does a really good job of owning his media, and the team over there does a really good job of like feeding him videos of his sacks from the week or providing him with photos because they know like he's going to post that kind of content. So they'll put in the effort to create that kind of content for him.
That's great. What would you say as far as like your where you're working and how that's affected you? So how has working with a well-known company such as the Coyotes affected your career?
I would say it's positively affected my career. It's honestly opened up a lot of doors for networking for me. Because I work with a team, it's allowed me to more easily connect with like other NHL teams. So like over the summer, we made it a point to connect with our counterparts at other teams because normally we would meet at like the NHL draft, or they have like NHL club meetings where the social team goes and you get a chance to like network there. But with COVID, they've put those on pause. So we made it a point to like reach out. I think we reached out to like the Canes, the Maple Leafs, and I want to say one other team as well. We kind of just did like a virtual coffee and kind of talked like just strategy between the platforms, because there's some things that some companies are doing. The Penguins were another one. There's some things that like some teams are doing that we're like, whoa, that's like really cool. Like, how are you doing that? And there's other things where they're like, wow, you guys are crushing it. You're like your paid Facebook campaign strategy. Like, how are you doing that? And honestly, like the goals for each team vary so differently. It's just interesting to hear like how they're thinking. Like, a Pittsburgh Penguins isn't worried about selling season ticket memberships. They're worried about getting like single game tickets in the door, which they have like a really strong on ice product, so they're not really like worried about that. But for us, we really push like season ticket memberships and half season tickets, and getting people to come out on a Monday night to our games. So I would say like networking has been a little bit easier with what I have now.
That's great. No, good examples. And I definitely can see that. Like some teams, yeah, different teams have different challenges. Like you said, like, some teams are, just been around so long, they don't have to worry about their season ticket base, I guess. Good
Yeah,
problem.
100%.
Yeah.
It's a good problem to have. I wish we had that problem.
You mentioned COVID, and not being able to meet in person as much at like the NHL draft, things like that. So how has COVID, working from home, things like that, how has your work been affected or not affected by all of that?
We've actually been in the office since I started full time. For us, we have to be at the rink to cover the players. It's kind of hard to do social from your couch on some days. It really just depends kind of what's going on here. My rule of thumb is like if the players are in the building, I'm in the building. So that's nights, weekends, whenever, unless we're tag teaming it with our production team. But as far as like when COVID was around last year, we had the COVID bubble for the players. So they were getting daily tested every day. They had to wear masks. It was literally home, rink, airplane, hotel, rink. Like they had very limited spots they could go. And if you were going to be near those players, you also had to be daily COVID tested. So we actually rotated around our social spot through the season. So my boss had it for the first part of the season because I wasn't full-time right at the start. And then I took it over, and then we had a marketing photographer start about the halfway mark. So we flipped access to her because we were kind of playing the game of like, who can give us the best content with this spot. Thankfully this year it's like if you're vaccinated you just have to wear a mask if you're around the players, so it's gone a little bit easier, but knock on wood it stays that way. But being able to be face to face to the players is huge, because it's one thing to message them from the brand account and say like, hey, I got your photos for you, but it's another thing to run into them in the hallway and say like, hey, I got your photos, do you need help posting? I can help you come up with a caption, or something like that.
Totally. Speaking of which, you mentioned the road. Do you travel on the road with them as well, or?
I do not, no. So we actually send one of our videographers on the road, and between them and our amazing PR team, only one PR person travels on the road as well. They'll send us iPhone videos. Our videographer will cut us videos. They'll do photos when we're on the road. We're hopeful that we're going to be traveling our photographer for a couple of games this season, but it really just depends on the road games.
Great. Okay. What would you say, what type of professional and personal skills does it take to succeed at this type of work that you do?
I would say as far as like professional skills, I would say like social media strategy, understanding the platforms, and then a little bit of like video editing. Those are always good tools to have. As far as personal skills, just being like a really open person, someone that's like easily can like go with the flow, someone who's like doesn't really shy away from a challenge. There's one of the things I really love about my job is like no day is exactly the same. There's always something different happening in my days, and it makes me have to be really focused and be able to like problem solve in the moment. And then just someone who's also just a team player. We work with so many different departments and we work with so many different like areas in the company, that we really do have to be like a team player at the end of the day.
Very good. All right. And then one of the things I like to do, just as we wrap up for the day, is just really think about, a lot of these the students that are in this class are thinking about what their career is going to be. A lot of them want to work in either small, medium companies, as far as like take what they've learned in social media and get their first marketing job. Some of them might go the route of trying to work for an agency down the line. I guess the question for you would be, what advice would you give somebody that's in school now but that's going to be looking for a job in the marketing industry?
My biggest advice is to network. And it's something I wish I had done when I was in my undergrad as well. My biggest thing is just to reach out and like look at LinkedIn and see what kind of people hold the position or the job that you're looking for, And I would honestly just send them a message and say like, hey, I'm, you know, about to graduate with my degree in this. I'm looking to have a job similar to yours. Like, would you be open to like a 10-15 minute call to talk about like how you got into that position, what you do in your day to day, what you would recommend to somebody who's looking to get into a job like this? Because honestly, reaching out and like building those kind of connections is great. It's even better for like, let's say that person has an opening that comes up at their company and they're like, oh, this person reached out to me. Like, I should reach out to them and see, you know, if they have an opening, or like if you, my other advice would be if you do, when you do go to apply for jobs, figure out who the hiring manager is or figure out somebody in that department and send them a LinkedIn message, tell them you applied for the job, see if you can like, you know, connect with them or if they can connect you with the hiring manager. Going that extra step is huge. For us, we just hired our social specialist. We had over 250 applications in the span of a week for it. It was insane. And when it came time to go through portfolios and resumes, the people who had reached out to me on LinkedIn, I was like, oh, like her name seems familiar. I think she reached out to me on LinkedIn. It made me take that extra step and like take an extra look at her profile when I came in.
Great advice. Very, very good advice. Okay, very good. So, Kaci, I'm going to share this video with the class, and then if they have any questions for you, is the best way to get a hold of you just to reach out to you on LinkedIn, or if there are any other?
LinkedIn's great. I'm on there every day for work, so LinkedIn's awesome.
Very good, very good. All right, well, thank you guys. Kaci, I really appreciate your time on this. This is really good content. So thanks, and I'm looking forward to seeing how they start playing here soon. So definitely, hopefully, we'll see you at the game.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. We'll see you at a game this season.